Picture a small fishing village on the coast of Japan 200 years ago. Every winter, the storms come, and every winter, half the village runs out of rice before spring. But one family never does. They are not the family with the biggest boat. They are not the family who catches the most fish. They are the family who built a stone cellar before anyone else thought they needed one. While the other families were eating well in autumn, this family was filling their cellar, kilogram by kilogram, sealing it and walking past it every single day without touching it. Winter came. The boats with the biggest catches had nothing left. The family with the small, quiet cellar ate well until the snow melted. This is not a story about luck. This is not a story about income. It is a story about a container. In Japan, there is an old expression, Ari no Su, the ant's nest. An ant does not earn more than a grasshopper. An ant simply never stops building its store before it needs it. The grasshopper sings through summer and starves through winter. Most people today are grasshoppers with good salaries. They will never become rich, no matter how much they earn, because they were never taught how to build a nest. Today, we are not going to teach you how to make more money. We are going to teach you how the Japanese, on some of the most modest salaries in the developed world, quietly build wealth that outlasts companies, outlasts careers, and outlasts entire economic downturns. We are going to show you how to become rich on a low salary. Let's start with the myth that is keeping you poor. The myth is this: if I just earned more, I would finally relax. I would finally save. I would finally feel secure. This is one of the most expensive lies in personal finance, and almost everyone believes it. Lifestyle expands to meet income almost automatically. The moment your salary increases, your rent increases, your car upgrades, your dinners get a little nicer, your subscriptions multiply. Researchers call this lifestyle creep. The Japanese have a far older and more poetic name for the opposite discipline, mottainai. It roughly translates to "what a waste," but it carries a far deeper meaning than the English phrase suggests. Mottainai is the feeling of pain when you see value being thrown away, whether that value is food, fabric, time, or money. A Japanese grandmother does not throw away rice because it is 1 day old. A Japanese craftsman does not discard a tool because it is scratched. And a person who has internalized mottainai does not casually upgrade their phone because a new one was released. This is not about being cheap. It is about feeling in your bones that waste is a kind of small betrayal. Once you feel that, your spending changes permanently, regardless of how much you earn. So why are so many people, even high earners, terrible at holding on to money? Because modern spending has been engineered to remove your awareness. One tap, one click, one swipe. There is a term in behavioral economics called the pain of paying, and it describes a very real, very physical sensation in your brain when you hand over physical cash. When you pay with a card or a phone, that sensation is almost completely numbed. Companies spend enormous budgets specifically to reduce this friction, because friction is the enemy of impulse spending. The less you feel the money leaving you, the more of it leaves. The Japanese household method called kakeibo, a household ledger created in 1904 by Japan's first female journalist, addressed this directly by forcing every transaction to be written by hand. But kakeibo alone is just one tool. What we are going to give you today is a far wider system, the underlying cultural architecture beneath that one tool, the deeper reasons why a country with some of the lowest average salaries among wealthy nations still produces some of the highest personal savings rates on earth. The first principle is called Genchi Genbutsu, which literally means go and see for yourself. It is a phrase used heavily in Japanese manufacturing, most famously inside Toyota, where managers are trained never to trust a report from a desk. If there is a problem on the factory floor, you walk to the factory floor. You look with your own eyes. Apply this to your money. Most people manage their finances from a single number, the balance sitting in their banking app. That number is a report from a desk. It does not tell you where the money is going, why it is going there, or what patterns are repeating month after month. Genchi Genbutsu, applied to your wallet, means going to the source. It means physically reviewing every transaction, every receipt, every subscription renewal with your own eyes, instead of trusting the illusion of a single balance. When you do this for the first time, most people are stunned. They discover 3, 4, sometimes 5 recurring charges they had completely forgotten existed. They discover that a so-called small habit is actually the largest line item in their entire month. You cannot fix what you refuse to look at directly, and most people have never looked at their spending directly in their entire lives. The second principle is the concept of ma, the meaningful pause. In Japanese art, architecture, and music, ma refers to the empty space between objects or notes, the silence that gives the sound its shape. A room with no empty space feels suffocating. A song with no silence feels exhausting. Western consumer culture has removed MR from spending entirely. See it, want it, buy it, all in the same 30 seconds, no pause in between. Reintroducing MA into your financial life means building a deliberate gap between desire and action. When you feel the urge to buy something that is not food, rent, or medicine, you do not say no. You simply create space. You write the item down in a small notebook, along with the date and the price, and you close the notebook. You are not denying yourself. You are postponing the decision until your emotional state has changed. Wait 7 days for anything under $50. Wait 30 days for anything above it. When the waiting period ends, look at the list again. The uncomfortable truth is that the vast majority of items on that list will no longer interest you at all. You were never reacting to the product. You were reacting to a feeling, boredom, stress, envy, fatigue, and the feeling passed long before the 30 days did. Money was never spent. Nothing was sacrificed. The desire simply expired on its own, the way all desires eventually do if you do not feed them immediately. The third principle is shoshin, the beginner's mind, applied here to the size of your container rather than the size of your income. A beginner does not assume they already understand something. They observe before they judge. Apply shoshin to your monthly budget by refusing to assume your fixed costs are actually fixed. Most people accept their rent, their insurance premium, their phone plan, and their subscriptions as unchangeable facts of life, the way they accept the weather. They are not facts of life. They are decisions made by a past version of you who may have stopped paying attention years ago. A beginner's mind asks, with real curiosity and no defensiveness, does this cost still deserve to exist? Could I renegotiate it? Could I downgrade it without losing anything I actually value? People who practice shoshin with their expenses regularly find 10, 15, even 20% of their fixed costs can be quietly reduced without changing their quality of life in any way they would notice day to day. This single habit, repeated once every few months, often produces more savings than an entire year of cutting back on coffee. Now we arrive at the architecture itself, the structure that holds these principles together. Divide every yen, every dollar, every rupee that enters your hands into 3 rivers, not 2. Most budgeting advice talks about needs and wants, as though life were only 2 colors. The Japanese household model adds a 3rd river that almost nobody in the West uses correctly, the river of growth. The first river is survival, your rent, your food, your transport, your essential bills. The second river is comfort, the optional spending that makes life pleasant, dining out, entertainment, hobbies. The third river, growth, is money spent specifically to make future you more capable than present you, books, courses, tools of your trade, even modest investments. The mistake almost everyone makes is treating the third river as optional, the first thing to cut when money feels tight. The Japanese household tradition treats it as close to sacred because a household that never invests in its own growth simply repeats the same financial ceiling year after year, decade after decade. You can survive your entire life and never become wealthy. Growth is the river that actually changes your trajectory. Here is the part almost nobody tells you, the part that separates people who stay broke from people who quietly become rich, regardless of their paycheck. You do not decide how much to save after you see what is left over at the end of the month. You decide your savings amount the moment the income arrives, before a single bill is paid, and you remove it immediately, physically, into an account you do not casually check. This is sometimes called paying yourself first, but the Japanese household tradition has practiced a version of this for generations through a custom called tsumitate, accumulation through small, repeated, automatic deposits. The amount does not need to be large. 5% is enough to begin. The psychological function matters more than the number. Once that money has left your primary account, your brain stops treating it as available, the same way you do not consider your rent money available, even though it is technically still sitting there for a few days before the landlord is paid. Scarcity, even artificial scarcity that you created yourself, makes you resourceful in ways abundance never will. A person with $200 of spending money for the week will find a way to make it work. A person with $2,000 of spending money for the week will find a way to spend all of it and will not even remember on what. There is also a uniquely Japanese relationship with the objects you already own called monozukuri, a deep respect for craftsmanship and the things made with care. A wealthy household in Japan is not necessarily the household with the most new purchases. It is often the household where the rice cooker has lasted 15 years because it has been cleaned properly every single time, where the shoes are polished instead of replaced, where a small tear in a jacket is mended in 20 minutes rather than treated as a reason to buy a new one. The modern consumer economy survives by convincing you that your possessions are disappointing, that the version you own is already slightly obsolete, that satisfaction is always one purchase away. Monozukuri is the quiet rebellion against that entire premise. Every time you repair instead of replace, you are not just saving money in that single moment. You are training your own mind to find satisfaction in maintenance rather than acquisition, and that shift in mindset, once it takes hold, reduces your desire to buy new things across every category of your life, not just the one item you repaired. At the end of every month, the Japanese household tradition includes a quiet ritual called hansei, honest self-reflection, conducted without shame and without self-punishment. You sit down with your numbers, not to judge yourself, but to study yourself, the way a scientist studies the results of an experiment. You ask plain, unemotional questions. Where did the money actually go this month? Which category surprised me? Was there a pattern, a stressful week, a string of late nights, a moment of boredom that explains an unusual spike in spending? Hansei is not about guilt. Guilt makes people hide from their own numbers, and a person who is afraid to look at their spending will never improve it. Hansei is about curiosity. You are simply collecting information about yourself, 1 month at a time, and using that information to make the following month slightly sharper than the one before it. Do this consistently for a year, and the improvements compound the same way interest compounds, quietly, then suddenly. Now let's talk about why this entire philosophy works, regardless of your salary, because this is the part that genuinely changes lives. Wealth has never been primarily a function of income. It is a function of the gap, the distance between what enters your hands and what leaves them. A person earning a very high salary who spends nearly all of it every single month owns almost nothing real. They own the appearance of success and very little of its substance. If that income disappears tomorrow through illness, job loss, or simple bad luck, they are in serious trouble within a matter of weeks. A person earning a modest salary who consistently keeps a meaningful gap between income and spending is, in the truest sense, already wealthy. Because wealth is best measured not in dollars, but in time. Specifically, the amount of time you could survive and make your own decisions without needing anyone's permission or anyone's paycheck. The Japanese household tradition has understood this distinction for well over a century, which is precisely why a nation with comparatively modest average wages has produced generations of households with extraordinary financial resilience. They were never chasing a bigger number. They were widening a gap. So here is your challenge, and we want you to actually do this, not just nod along and forget it by tomorrow. For the next 7 days, carry a small notebook, or simply use the Notes app on your phone if you must, but write down every single thing you spend money on, no matter how small. Do not categorize it yet. Do not judge it yet. Just record it faithfully, every single day, the way the family in that fishing village filled their cellar one small portion at a time. On day 7, sit down and read the entire list out loud to yourself. You will notice something immediately. A handful of small, repeated purchases will account for a startling percentage of your week. That is not an accident, and it is not a coincidence. That is your leak, the specific place where your own version of Motenai needs to begin. Find it, and you have found the exact starting point of your own quiet wealth. Tell us in the comments, what is the one expense you already suspect is your leak? The small purchase you make almost on autopilot that you know deep down is draining far more than it is worth. Be honest about it. And once you have named it, write your own version of the vow that has guided households like this for generations. I do not need a bigger income to become wealthy. I need a smaller leak and a longer memory. The cellar is not built in a single harvest. It is built one quiet, unremarkable deposit at a time, long before the winter arrives.